It's February and this is the Library Roadshow. On the show today, old newspapers, a little fiddle playing, and a visit from the president. Welcome to the February edition of the Library Roadshow. I'm Mary Stein and this is a production of your East Baton Rouge Parish Library System. We're still celebrating the library's star status and starting to count up all the stats for the annual report. And as they say, numbers are up. Over 1.5 million library patrons visited our facilities in 2022. And you checked out over 2.5 million items while you were at it. And that's out of over 335,000 card holders. You asked over 80,000 questions, participated in more than 9,000 programs, attended meetings, and got online. But there's always room for more, so keep on coming. And speaking of coming to the library, this month, more wonderful and free programs. Saturday Science takes us to the LSU campus mounds, and Sounds of Science does a mashup between astrophysics and music with Journey to the Big Bang and beyond. We're focusing on clearing up the paper clutter in our Get Organized series, and gardeners are everywhere sharing their expertise on color, vegetables, orchids, seeds, and more as we get ready for the spring season. We'll host LPB executive producer Linda Midget and Jay Darden as they take us behind the scenes on their new documentary, Why Louisiana Ain't Mississippi or Anyplace Else. The Grown Up Gaming League is in full swing, as are our film buffs. The Career Center is rolling out new workshops, and Professor Gorham will dig into the plight of young entrepreneurs in our Be Inspired series with Baton Rouge Community College. And let's not forget our virtual author talks. For all the details, check out the February edition of The Source, available in print and online at ebrpl.com.
Free access to books, audio, and library resources are just a few of the benefits available to you when you get a library card. Need free access to a computer? You get that. Want free access to premium digital resources like Mango Languages and Linden.com? You get that. Need to book a meeting space? You get that. Heck, you can even check out a telescope or use a digital printer with your library card. If you live in East Baton Rouge Parish, pick up your free library card from your local branch library today. Premium access to everything the library system has to offer is waiting for you.
For every kind of service or resource that the library offers in the real world, we also try to offer something to parallel it in the digital library. It's no secret that we carry lots of newspapers in print and provide access to even more online. And we digitized the Advocate years ago. It's one of our most used resources, but we're always hungry for more. So how about checking out a new resource called the Louisiana Collection? It's time to find out more in the digital library.
In the digital library, you'll find online national newspapers and broad coverage of Louisiana newspapers, including the Advocate and the Times-Picayune back from their beginnings. With the addition of historical newspapers, Louisiana Collection, we now have archives of newspapers from Alexandria, Lafayette, Monroe, Opelousas, and Shreveport. For some of these titles, like the Town Talk and the Shreveport Times, the coverage goes back over 100 years. These newspaper archives are great for researching family history and seeing how significant events from the US and Louisiana history were covered at the time they happened. Each title includes the complete paper, cover to cover, with full-page images, articles, photos, and advertisements as they were printed. Newspaper pages and articles can be easily emailed, printed, or downloaded in PDF format. Find historical newspapers, Louisiana Collection, and other newspaper archives in the digital library at ebrpl.com.
This is a true treasure for news junkies, historians, genealogists, and trivia hounds. I personally love the feel you get when you're immersed in the popular culture of the day, especially if that day was 100 years ago. All you need is that library card. Let's shift gears now and go beyond the stacks.
We here at the library love a good story, and we also love a little bit of history. But what if you could hear about that history straight from the source itself? We're here at the main library at Goodwood to hear a little bit of history explored through storytelling from Abraham Lincoln himself. Let's check it out.
She said, "Wasn't that shameful, you feeding Tabby with a gold fork?" I said, if that gold fork were good enough for Buchanan and good enough for Tabby. My name is Kevin Wood. I am a professional Abraham Lincoln portrayer. Unable to come to an agreement, they asked me, "Lincoln, how long should a man's legs be?" I said, "Never thought about it much before, but at first blush I should judge they should be just long enough to reach from his body to the ground." Today we're at the main library at Goodwood for a program which I call Lincoln as Storyteller. We'll talk a little bit of history, but by way of my favorite stories and jokes. I sometimes told stories and jokes simply to entertain, to make people laugh. But other times there were other reasons as well. I should like to share with you some of those reasons and relate to you a good number of my favorite stories and jokes. Well, people are always interested in talking to Abe. I'm recognized. For some reason, they always recognize me. Very few times they think I'm George or someone else, but so they recognize me. They know something about my life, of course. They know about my role in our nation's history, and they often have some questions for me. They often would like to have photographs with me, of course, as well. Do you have a question?
Do you know George Washington?
I never knew George Washington. He died 10 years before I was born. We are the Association of Lincoln Presenters. I'm actually serve on the board of it, and we have a number of Mr. Lincolns around the country, and we have a number of Mary Lincolns as well. And we even have a few extra people who are sort of in the miscellaneous category. People like Stephen Douglas or Frederick Douglass or Jefferson Davis, for example. Secretary of State asked him, "May I inquire as to what is to be the subject of these lectures you wish to deliver in Springfield?" Visitor replied, all dignified, "These lectures concern the second coming of our Lord." "If you will take my advice," said the secretary, "you will not waste your time in this city. It is my private opinion that if the Lord has been in Springfield once, He'll never come the second time." Well, yes, it's wonderful that there are libraries such as the East Baton Rouge Parish Library, which are willing and always interested in having programs such as this, because I think it's valuable to the public to be able to learn about our nation's history, to remember our nation's history. My very first speech I made, first time I ran for office, I talked about the importance of education, and mostly so we can learn our history and remember our history.
Find more programs like this in the source every month or at ebrpl.com.
We're so grateful that President Lincoln was able to fit Baton Rouge in on his Whistle Stop tour. His visit really made history come alive. Keep watching The Source for other interesting programs where the past meets the present. Stay right there. After the break, Kristen Edson joins me for a chat right here on the Library Roadshow.
The East Baton Rouge Parish Library believes that free entertainment is good for us all. That's why we make ebooks and audiobooks available for free through the Libby app. Grant free access to unlimited streaming music and video through Freegal, Canopy, and IndieFlix. Get a library card. Get free entertainment at ebrpl.com/digital library.
You're watching the February edition of the Library Roadshow. Everything you need to know about your local library system. There is so much going on at your local library system, and it takes a team to keep everything running smoothly. Kristen Edson is part of that team. Kristen serves as the Deputy Library Director, and she has her finger on the pulse. Well, Kristen, I know that implementing our updated strategic plan is high on your to-do list. How are we going to move forward with this wonderful plan?
Well, we are identifying tasks and projects that all staff can be involved in to help us carry it out over the next 2 to 3 years. And it's going really well with the planning, and we're trying to figure out a good timeline on how to get all of these things achieved in a reasonable but actionable manner.
You will be serving as our interim
Correct.
library director until such time as the board appoints a new director. And let's talk about continuity.
Sure. So Spencer and I have been spending a lot of time together. You know, he's bringing me up to speed on any small little projects or detailed information that that I need to know. Starting to meet with people at the city to make sure that they know who I am, because I feel like they don't always. Because I for the last couple of years have been focusing, you know, mostly on facilities and IT. So so I'll be attending more council meetings and meeting with other department heads and things like that to make sure that everybody knows that I'm now the person that they're going to be asking questions to, and then you and Patricia and I will be working a little bit more closely together as well to make sure that we all are on the same page as we're moving forward.
Now, you mentioned IT and facilities, so there are some big things in the works.
Oh yes, well, actually, they're all notable, but the biggest ones that especially the public that will be very interested in are expanding the Wi-Fi hotspot program. There's been a lot of interest in that, so very soon, within the next few months, we will have hotspots available at all of our locations. We cannot provide as many, but it is going to be a decent expansion of that program.
Right, because right now we have 500 circulating every day.
Yes, so this will bring us up to, I believe it's an additional 225. And then we put out an RFP for a brand new website, and we are in the process of going over proposals. So by spring, we should have a vendor selected, and then we will begin the very intensive work of designing a new website, and that will include getting community input, a lot of community input, staff input to see what they would like to see in that new website.
Because for the library, it's not like you buy it at the store and just plug it in. It has to work with our catalog, all of our databases. It has to be the digital library, basically, our electronic branch.
Yeah.
And it has to be easy to use.
Yes, and we have some very unique resources that not every library has. We have the Baton Rouge City Key, and we have the organizational database, and we really want to highlight those unique resources that our community wants and needs, and better promote them on the website. And we also want some interactivity for both the staff and the public with the website. Right now it's a bit static, and it provides a lot of information.
Right, there's a lot there.
There is a lot there, a lot of really good information, but we want to make sure that it's doing its job most effectively.
And make things more discoverable, because our staff does a lot of work to create things like the community information database and the info guides that are pathfinders to resources, services, programs. So it's in our best interest to make sure that it's easy for the public to just have that googly experience and make it easy to find things. People can keep up with it on the capital improvements page on the website. It's all there. We hide nothing. We talk about it at every board meeting, and you give lengthy maintenance reports to the board so that they can be up on everything as well. So lots of information to share. It's going to be a very busy year. After the break, Dana Territo, plus book reviews from one of our younger readers. All that and more coming up next on the Library Roadshow.
The East Baton Rouge Parish Library believes that staying informed is good for us all. That's why we provide free access to the New York Times and other national newspapers online. Permit free access to niche magazines and articles through Press Reader. Get a library card. Get informed at ebrpl.com/newspapers.
Welcome back to the February edition of the Library Roadshow. There's an old saying that it's not the challenge, it's our response to the challenge that defines us. My next guest understands that. Dana Territo recently published a book entitled What My Grandchildren Taught Me About Alzheimer's Disease. I'll let Dana explain it. Hey Dana, How did you get your start as an author?
I've always been a writer. I journaled from the time I was very young. I just love to write, always loved English, and, especially writing about what I know. Documenting my experiences through the over 30 years of work with the Alzheimer's population led me to become a published author last year.
What is What My Grandchildren Taught Me About Alzheimer's really about?
The book is about actually the development it compares the development of children and the regression or the time travels of the Alzheimer's disease, but it's told in a way that I use the innocent dialogue and anecdotes from what I journal from my grandchildren, my 4 grandchildren. I think it's a fresh approach to looking at the disease. It's thought-provoking and humorous, and it will have readers experiencing the journey of Alzheimer's disease in a much more lighthearted and non-threatening way. So much so that they're going to learn skills and strategies and not even know it, because I start each chapter with these innocent dialogue between myself and my grandchildren. So many components of the disease are in there: behaviors, communication, person-centered care, spirituality. I think this book is a vital and handy resource for anybody affected by Alzheimer's disease and other dementias.
What inspired you to write this book?
My inspiration from the book, well, number one, I wanted to help all those affected by Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, which is, a very big goal, But my inspiration actually came from my paternal grandmother who lived in our household when I was very young, and also from Peggy, a person who had Alzheimer's, who I companioned as a volunteer at a nursing home for 22 years. So I really saw the disease from beginning to end. And then the day my first grandchild was born, my son said to me while he was holding this grandchild, "Mom, just think, 24/7. Suddenly the light bulb went off, because I knew for the Alzheimer's caregiving is 24/7. And so that sparked my idea about writing the book, and I began journaling conversations with this firstborn grandchild and the 3 grandchildren that followed.
What advice would you give to other aspiring authors?
Well, as a first-time author, what my advice I would share was really don't give up. Of course, I was very passionate about this project and this piece of work, and so I really stuck with it. It took me 13 years, but I stayed with it. I actually took a Gale course on publishing with this library, and the instructor was Leanne Kruzmark. And after being rejected many times with my book proposals, I finally landed a contract with Equinox Publishing. And when they sent me a contract, I really wanted to understand it better. So I contacted Leanne, and she reviewed the contract for me, and she later became my literary agent. So I think the best advice I can give to other authors and writers is to really get educated about the publishing world, take classes, read, get a mentor, and really talk to others in the field.
How can our viewers learn more about you and your work?
Well, how can you learn more about my work? My book is available online, places such as Amazon and Barnes & Noble. You can read more about me personally, about my weekly Alzheimer's question and answer column in the Advocate newspaper, and about my upcoming podcast with iHeartRadio, plus all about my book, What My Grandchildren Taught Me About Alzheimer's Disease. Please visit my website at thememorywhisperer.com. You have to put an ER on whisper, so thememorywhisperer.com. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Dana. This topic hits home for me. If you know someone who's facing an Alzheimer's diagnosis or is already serving as a caregiver, the library has many resources to aid you. Visit the Health Info Guide to get started. It's now time in our show to check in with one of our younger patrons to find out what they've been reading at the library.
Hi, I am Biz, and I'm 5. My favorite book is Biscuit. This is Biscuit. Biscuit is small. Biscuit is yellow. Time for bed, Biscuit. Woof woof. Biscuit wants a snack. Time for bed, Biscuit. Woof, woof, Biscuit wants a drink. My mommy brings me to the library. My favorite thing is to do with the library is to play hopscotch.
Thanks, Amethyst. It's great to see even the youngest in our community making good use of their library system. Stay right there. You're watching the Library Roadshow.
The East Baton Rouge Parish Library System believes that knowing where you come from is good for us all. That's why we grant free access to genealogy resources available through Ancestry.com, make the vast historic resources of Heritage Quest available to you online, get a library card, get your family tree at ebrpl.com/genealogy.
Eva Marie smoked 12,000 packs of cigarettes over 15 years. She quit, and now there's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking, now start screening. No matter how much you smoked, early detection could save you. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
You're watching the February edition of the Library Roadshow, a production of your East Baton Rouge Parish Library System. We do like to encourage the written word, whether it comes from the pens of young or old. This spring, Boo Milton is leading Right Time for Young Creatives on the first Tuesday each month at the River Center branch, while Ronna Gray is teaching a creative aging writers workshop at the main library. Writers groups meet throughout the system. Our Career Center is hosting the Artist Way workshop series, and we even encourage authors to submit their manuscripts to Press Reader so they can be published. Writers also pop in for book premieres. Local author James Linden Hogg joined us recently at the main library for his book premiere. He's on the younger side, but he has what's often called an old soul.
My name is James Linden Hogg, and it's a delight to be here at the Goodwood Library in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Today I'm going to be talking about my recent book that I published called Finding Faith in the Wasteland, Short Stories on Life's Quest for Meaning. I brought my fiddle and banjo as well, and so we can play some music too. Thank you very much. The book is a collection of short stories. In college, at LSU, I took an English poetry class, and we studied this poem called The Wasteland, about T.S. Eliot. And I fell in love with the work. Well, after I graduated, I was going through some difficulties. You know, I was thinking a lot about life, and when you look out on the world, there doesn't seem to be much hope. And I remembered that poem I read called The Wasteland. And Eliot was going through some similar struggles. So I started to write stories, and all of the stories were light. There were stories that seek light amid bleak circumstances, and hopefully people will find some of that light in these short stories.
It was on one fine March morning, I bid your ladies adieu, and I was on the road to Jacksontown, my fortunes to renew. I've cursed all foreign money, no credit could I gain, which filled my heart with longing for the days of Pontchartrain.
I'll speak a little about the book, some of the stories that are going to be mentioned. We'll play a few tunes. Some of the stories are humorous, and I'm going to mention those as well. My name is James Linden Hogg, and this is my father, Jim, and it's a pleasure to see all of y'all. I wrote a book recently, and it's called Finding Faith in the Wasteland, Short Stories on Life's Quest for Meaning. It's incredibly valuable that the library has a space as beautiful as this for writers, for entertainers, for speakers to come and showcase whatever goods they have for the public, and I'm very grateful that I was asked to be here.
Whack for me, daddy-o, whack for me, daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar.
If you want to pick up the book, you can find it on Amazon, Finding Faith in the Wasteland. For music, you can look up my name, James Linden Hogg, and you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook. I have a YouTube channel as well that has many music videos, and so I'm on the World Wide Web.
It was great having James Linden share his story and his music at the library. We have all kinds of programming at your library system, from the big and flashy to the understated.
Bestsellers are great, sure, but everybody's read a book that you know didn't get the attention it deserved. We're here at the Fairwood Branch Library to give props to the underrated. Let's check it out.
My name's Caleb Kent. I'm a reference tech at Fairwood Library. As a reference tech, I pull books from the shelves and I assist patrons at the computers. And I plan programs and I build displays around the library. We're here at Fairwood Library and we're doing our underrated book swap program. You'll come into the library and you'll come past the circulation desk and enter the meeting room, and we'd have everyone sit down and introduce themselves and introduce their book. The idea behind the underrated book swap was to bring people together to talk about their favorite book, books they thought hadn't received a lot of attention. Books are entertaining, they open you to new possibilities you hadn't thought of before, different lifestyles, just engagement with different points of view you hadn't ever considered before. It's important for libraries to provide services for the communities that they're in.
Book clubs, recommended reads, kindred spirits. You can find them all at our 14 locations, in the Source newsletter every month, and at ebrpl.com.
This program was a big success. They're already planning how to improve it, and other branches might copy this idea. To me, it's kind of like a cookie swap. Yum, books. And now for today's contest. Visit the library's Facebook page at facebook.com/ebrpl. You've heard of selfies. Well, a shelfie is a selfie in front of your favorite bookshelf. We recently collected images for Shelfie Day, but it wasn't nearly enough. So get snapping and send them in. And while you're there, enjoy. We're not your grandfather's library anymore. What's coming up on the Library Roadshow in March? We'll kick off the spring One Book, One Community series.
Tune into the show next month and I'll share another free resource from inside the digital library at ebrpl.com.
Tune in next month and I'll share another fantastic library program with you.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Library Roadshow. And remember, your East Baton Rouge Parish Library is open 7 days a week at each and every one of 14 branches, plus 24/7 on the web. Check us out at ebrpl.com.